Sunday. I'm here to talk to you about supplementing nursing systems and finger feeding, as promised. It's a bit of a big subject, so a bit of a brave one to take on on a Sunday morning. I hope you had your coffee. I'd like to keep it as informal and chatty as possible, and as informative and useful as possible as well. So it's a not very well discussed subject, I find, in the breastfeeding world, in the infant feeding world, and I'd just like to share my experience of having done this for a few years. And I actually just wanted to share that it didn't come naturally to me either to use these tools. So SNS, the supplementing nursing system, and finger feeding. You may or may not know what these are. You might have done it yourself a million times as a breastfeeding supporter, or it might be the first time that you ever hear about it. So I'm here to do some myth busting and just to give you a general introduction of what these tools are good for, what the benefits are, maybe what the challenges are, and where to look for further help. So just to give you a bit of a background, I'm a breastfeeding counsellor since 2013, so 10 years now, well, coming up to 11 years, and IBCSC for the last 3 or 4 years. And it took me a while to get used to the idea of using these tools. When you're told that your baby is not gaining enough weight, or your baby needs more milk, then the first tool that we reach for is a bottle, and that's what most people use for supplementing. It's quite common maybe in the early days, or at least more common in the early days, that people are told that it's not necessarily a good idea to give a bottle, so you can give a cup or a syringe instead. Obviously, a lot of people express antenatally and give their express colostrum in syringes, and also some people give cup feeding a go, also not very popular in the UK. You might have heard of nipple confusion or flow preference, and ultimately when I meet people and I go to people's homes to help them with breastfeeding and mixed feeding, generally then they are usually giving their babies a bottle. So it's usually the first time they hear about having other ways to supplement apart from the bottle. So as I said, it took me a while into my infant feeding supporter journey to figure out how to use these tools effectively and in a baby and mother friendly manner, because it might be very baby friendly. We often talk about things being baby friendly. Just because it's baby friendly doesn't necessarily mean it's parent friendly as well, and that's what I'm here for today, because when I share these two videos, one about finger feeding and one about the SNS supplementing system, there was a lot of reaction and there was a lot of interest, and I get the same reaction when I go to people's homes and I share this tool with them. They feel surprised, some of them are very excited, and many of them are very impressed, and actually I got some comments in the past that this has changed their breastfeeding journey, their feeding journey, and they were able to transition back to breast. But more about this later. My inspiration in using these tools was Dr. Jack Newman, who is a great advocate of the supplementing nursing system and finger feeding. Our UK equivalent to Dr. Jack Newman in Canada is Philippa Pearson-Glaze, who has an amazing website named Breastfeeding Support, and I will link in her articles, which are a great summary of using these systems, and with a lot of practical tips and also further references and videos to watch. And one more name to mention is Dr. Silberstein, whom I worked alongside. I've been fortunate enough to work alongside her in her clinic, and I got hands-on experience at using these tools. She uses them a lot with her clients, very successfully, and yeah, that really encouraged me to bring them into my practice. But let's get to the point. So under what circumstances would a supplementing nursing system be feeding of choice? That was one of the questions I got from a colleague recently, actually. I made you a little list. So One reason you would use a supplementing nursing system is maybe a slow flow or a low supply. So if mother is told that she hasn't got enough milk for any reason, or your milk is not flowing for any reason, which are two different things altogether, firstly, just a disclaimer, you would be looking for skilled infant feeding support at that point. So rather than just putting a sticking plaster over it and treating the symptom, you really want to get to the bottom of the cause. Why is that your milk is not flowing? Or why is it that you maybe haven't got enough milk to satisfy your baby's needs? In the meantime, while this investigation is happening, you will be using tools like a supplementing nursing system, and this will encourage flow to the nipple, to the baby. The next reason would be a baby who is not feeding very actively. So that there are mother reasons and there are baby reasons, and these would be baby reasons. It could be a tongue tie, it could be some low muscle tone, or other reasons that we won't be able to go into. What you do need to ensure is that baby is actually sucking at the breast. So it's very important that you've got a baby who is sucking and is able to remove milk to some degree at the breast. You can't just have a baby who is literally sitting there hanging around and not moving their mouth. No matter how much milk you're going to bring to the breast, if they're not able to suckle at the breast, they're not going to be able to remove milk, and this system is not going to help them. If the nipple is sore, you can still use the supplementing nursing system. It does become a bit tricky and complicated. I just thought I'd mention it can be used in conjunction with nipple shields, but it does become extra fiddly. It is possible, and I probably need to post a separate video on that. But yeah, supplementing nursing systems and nipple shields can be used together. There are ways around it. It again won't solve your problems of your sore nipples, so you need to look for other solutions for that. And one more reason to mention, one lesser mentioned reason is if you're adopting a baby, or if you're helping someone who's adopting a baby and they want to induce lactation. So definitely worth investigating this tool while you're working on your milk production. What are the benefits? So, we mentioned earlier that you might not necessarily always want to use a bottle to supplement baby. Why do we keep going on about finding alternative ways to supplement rather than bottle feeding? So using a supplementing nursing system, and I will show you in a minute how it's set up and how it's used, means that you're breastfeeding and supplementing at the same time. So you're basically not only cutting down on supplementing time, which is, if you ask any parent who's triple feeding, they will definitely mention that as a massive benefit. Sometimes you can cut down from the combined breastfeeding, pumping and supplementing schedule, triple feeding schedule, meaning an hour and a half routine, down to about half of that quite often. So basically you are breastfeeding, you're both learning to breastfeed at the breast, and the supplementation happens alongside breastfeeding. So your breast gets more stimulated, which means more production. So if you've got milk production issues, then that actually is definitely something that you want to consider. Baby sucking on a breast more effectively because there's extra flow coming to the breast. So you're definitely working on that milk supply, as well as baby learning to breastfeed, and you are ensuring they're coming on with the best possible latch. And finally, not to be underestimated, the idea that when we're separating breastfeeding from supplementing, I often hear mothers saying, I just breastfeed. Sometimes they sit there for quite a considerable amount of time, 45 minutes to an hour, and clearly baby comes off unsatisfied, and then comes the supplement. And what that means is that baby will associate fullness with bottle feeding or supplementing separately, away from the breast rather. So what you achieve by nursing and supplementing at the same time at the breast is baby will associate a feeling of fullness with breastfeeding. So let's get to the practicalities, which I'm sure many of you will be interested in. What you will need, what equipment is needed. So the main thing you need is one of these SNS tubes. They also called NG tubes, nasogastric tubes, and infant feeding tubes when you're looking on the internet. And ironically enough, most of the suppliers are pet suppliers, so obviously it's a lot better known in the pet world than in the human infant feeding world. But it looks something like this, and I will show you a few versions of it. Comes in different shapes and sizes. Some are longer, some are shorter. When you buy it, it will come in sterile packaging, so you will get a tube that will look something like this. But this is open already, so I'm just showing it to you. It's got a cap on one end, which, by the way, I can't see any use for, so I sometimes just say you can just easily snip off that cap because you're not going to need it, and then it doesn't get in the way. Once you've got your milk in your bottle, then the cap can sometimes close itself, and then you're wondering why it's not flowing. And the thin end of the tube will come to baby's mouth, which means they will get extra milk flow through that straw. And the best way to describe it is just like a straw. These nasogastric tubes are used for infant feeding when babies can't feed through their mouth. That's their original use, but that's not what we're going to do with it. All we're going to do is we're going to attach the end of the tube to the end of the nipple, by which we're going to provide extra flow from your container, which is usually a bottle. So what you're going to do is have some milk ready in your bottle. You're going to plunge one end of your feeding tube, the valve end of the feeding tube, into your milk, and you're going to bring the other end of your tube to your nipple. And there are good ways of doing this. I'm going to give you more tips on that in a minute, because as you can see, even though I don't have a live baby here, I already feel like I need to be an octopus. But this bit is just about the equipment and the setting up. So you need your bottle of milk. It can be express breast milk or formula. You need your tubing, one tube at a time. Talk about that in a minute. And then you need your bottle T just to hold it in place. That little hole that's there already is probably going to be too small. So I would use a sterile large needle or a skewer. When I say sterile, you can heat it over your hob, heat it up, sterilize it, and then enlarge the hole. And with any luck, you would then make it big enough to feed your tube through, and that means you've got a more solid container, so your tube is not slipping all over the place. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. And my hole just is getting very stubborn, not playing ball, so I wish I'd prepared this earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend it's going through the hole, okay, and then you can screw this back on. Here is your homemade supplementing nursing system. Before, this is one way of setting up your system. I'll talk more about different versions of it. You can get them commercially. So I just thought I'd show you the Medela supplementing nursing system that can be ordered online. Excuse me. Principle is the same. You can say it's more user-friendly in a way because you have the necklace that you can hang around your neck and with adjustable string, so you can move it up and down. It's got two tubes coming out of it. You've got measurements, so you've got your scale down the side of your bottle both ways, so you can measure your milk. And just a word on that, you don't want to put too much milk, especially if it's express breast milk, in your supplementer, because you don't want to waste it. And once it's got in touch with baby saliva, you can't use it again. So less is more, maybe in 30 to 60 mils increments. And this will be your tool to bring extra milk to baby. While you're not using it as it's upside down and you might be wondering how it's not flowing out due to gravity, you've got little slots here at the end of your supplementing nursing system, Medela system. you can pinch off your tube. So you can put it in there and pinch it off. Most people only use one tube at a time. The 2 tubes are useful if you want more flow. So clearly you get twice the amount of flow through 2 tubes than you get through 1 tube. But especially while you're learning, it's probably best just to experiment with 1. These tubes are a lot more sort of flimsy, and my personal preference is definitely the homemade system. These tubes that you get, silicone tubes that you get through your order, will be slightly firmer. So for me, slightly easier to control. Haka's just brought out a new supplementing nursing system as well. I've just ordered it, so I'm just going to have a little look at it soon, but I haven't tested it yet, so I have no idea how good it is or how effective it is, but I just thought I'd point out that it exists. So let's get to the actual use. So you've got your system set up. I'm going to go with the homemade system for demonstration. Make sure your plunger is in the milk. I haven't got milk here, so you've just got to imagine you've got milk up to maybe you've got 30 ml or 60 ml of milk. If your baby is happy, if you've got milk flowing, and maybe baby is happy to suck for the first let down, you don't need to use this immediately. You might just want to wait until baby slows down. But if baby has trouble with suckling from the beginning of the feed, you might want to just start using it immediately. At which point, again, to avoid the fiddly bit when you're bringing baby to the breast, you might want to find a surface next to you to put your bottle on, or some mums decide to stick it inside their bra. I'm just gonna stick it in the top here, just to give you a quick demo. And then you might want to even use some tape to tape it down your chest and all the way to your nipple, not too close to the nipple, just sort of on the breast, just to hold it in place. Your tube is not going to stick out further than your nipple, the end of your nipple, for obvious reasons. You don't want to be poking baby's palate. And then bring baby to the breast just like you do as usual. Maybe we're going to do a sort of koala type positioning here. And what you will see then, as soon as baby starts sucking, is more flow. You're going to see the milk running through your tube from the top, from your bottle to baby's mouth. And what tends to happen at that point, and if you look back on the video I shared recently, is a baby that's feeding much more effectively and efficiently. So you might see deeper sucks and swallows, and a higher suck-swallow ratio than you've ever seen before with this method. So if that's happening, you're winning. Okay, so obviously keep making sure there is still milk in the bottle and the milk is coming through. The first time, you can see that I'm struggling doing it myself. So the first time you might want to use a helper who is actually holding the bottle behind baby's head, behind your back. I had a mum recently who came up with an extremely creative solution. She's actually using her Haka pump that she's expressing her milk into, and using her Haka pump to plunge the SNS tube in, and then her ready-made system is ready. As soon as she expressed her milk, it's ready to go. Just avoiding another bit of sterilizing and simplifying things. Sticking the bottle into your bra strap is useful, and running the tube alongside your body warms the milk. So even though you probably pre-warm formula, your body temperature is actually warming up the milk as you go through that thin tube. So it's another fun fact, another benefit of using this system. What else? What else is there to say? So the height of the bottle. Often people ask, okay, so where do I hold the bottle? So baby is latched on, and they're slowing down. Okay, so if your tube is not inserted at the beginning of the feed, because baby is actually drinking pretty well at the first let down, but then they start slowing down and you want them to drink more, you've done your breast compressions and there's no more breast milk coming out of the breast, you can then insert the tube during the feed. You're going to need to either find the area under the top lip and just push the nipple slightly, create a bit of space, and push the tube in that way, or the corner of baby's mouth. It's really difficult to demonstrate on a video. You might have to get some help with this bit, or just watch a few videos with live babies and see if that gives you a better demonstration. I'll link in some useful online sources for that. But the idea is the same. And how far the tube goes in is usually just the last piece of your finger. I usually go with. So when you insert the tube, the end of the tube will be aligned with the end of your finger, and then just try and get it in as far. Baby will tell you if it's gone too far. It's only soft, so you can't really do damage. All you need to do is, if they start gagging and expressing discomfort or maybe pulling away, just pull it back again and just give it another go. It usually happens eventually. So the flow can be adjusted by, I mentioned with the medulla system, you can either have 2 tubes or just 1 tube to adjust the flow. But also the width of these tubes, they come in, I just looked it up yesterday, I didn't know what a 5 French and a 6 French sizing were. It's actually quite complicated, but basically the higher the number, the thicker the wider the tube, so the more milk comes through. And again, the tubes come in different lengths, so you might actually want to get yourself a longer length than my one. This one here is 91 centimeters. So I'm just going to open it just to show you. You actually gain, you get less pressure, but you get more length, so you've got more room for maneuver. You can see how much longer this is. So you've got a bit more room for maneuver. So you might want to look at the length of the tube before you order. And finally, the height of the bottle. So we're working with gravity here. So the higher the bottle, the faster the flow. The lower the bottle, the slower the flow. Again, you're looking at baby's reaction. If the milk is dribbling out around the lips, and you need to find the muslin to catch the milk, then likelihood is baby is not really coping the flow. So what you want to do is lower the bottle or keep it horizontal with baby's head. But you can really play around with this, and it really makes a difference. So the lower you keep the bottle, the harder they have to suck, and the slower the flow, the higher you lift it, the more help they get with gravity, and the faster the flow. I hope that makes sense. Often people ask about cleaning the tubes. That's a really good question. So no, you don't just use a tube once and then you throw it away. Even though they're fairly inexpensive, they're too expensive for that. So what you want to do then is get your syringe, get hold of a syringe, and you're going to use hot soapy water after each use to fill the tube with and swish it through. So you're going to use the syringe to insert into the end of your tube. I'll show it to you on this one. It's a lot easier to see. Okay, just insert your syringe filled with hot soapy water, flush it through. Then you get your syringe filled with clean cold water, flush it through, do that a few times. Then use the lasso action we often talk about to get excess water out, and have a little play, and then just hang it up on your washing line somewhere or keep it in a clean container. Once a day you would want to sterilize it in cold sterilizing fluid, so just in a melt-on bath. It doesn't like heat, it gets brittle pretty quickly, and then by this method you can probably recycle your tube for at least a couple of days. Keep looking out for signs of any kind of residue or brittleness, but yeah, you can clean your tube a few times and keep reusing it. Okay, so that was supplementing nursing system. I think I exhausted most questions that I usually get on this subject. And I want to move on to finger feeding. Finger feeding is another supplementing method. So we talked earlier about why would you use supplementing nursing system, and all the examples I gave included a baby who's actually feeding at the breast. So here with finger feeding, we have a baby who is not latching for any reason, not latching, not drinking at the breast, and you're working on your supply. You probably got some sort of support with that, increasing your supply and working on why baby is not drinking at the breast, and you need to be giving them milk. You know, we talk about the 3 keeps. So keep baby fed, keep baby close, keep your milk flowing, and the first of those keeps is to keep baby fed. And we talked about complementary ways of feeding baby. Sometimes bottle feeding is a good solution and the quickest solution and the simplest solution, and that's all you want. In that case, you will learn all about paced bottle feeding, pacing the bottles, and baby-led bottle feeding can be as good as anything else if it's done well, and all the people who feed baby understand and know about it. However, it's very, very hard to stop a baby from starting to prefer a bottle, no matter how much you're pacing, how many times you stop, and how baby-led you are. So here we offered another solution, which is finger feeding, which is again a lesser known way of feeding baby, but it works really well. It's actually a lot simpler. It's using the same tools as the supplementing nursing system. That's why I'm talking about it under the same steam, because the beginning of the process is exactly the same. So you get your milk into your bottle, you plunge the plunger end of your tube into the bottle of milk, keep it close to you. Just going to put it on the table next to me, and get baby into your feeding position. So you wouldn't do finger feeding with a baby completely lying flat. You would probably have them propped up to some degree. You can actually hold them in a breastfeeding position, because you might want to. I know Jack Newman, for example, has a video where she uses finger feeding to prime baby to come onto the breast after. So it can be used as a kind of getting the idea, giving baby the idea that this is what you do, and then it will hopefully make things click for baby to then come and suck at the breast more efficiently. You might bring the tube with. You might go from transition from finger feeding to the breast and just use the same tube and keep the milk flowing, and you might use it completely separately. You might just be finger feeding for a while, for a transitional period of time, and then start introducing the nipple. The benefits of using finger feeding is because your finger is a similar diameter and texture to the nipple, so it's human skin against human skin. As a lactation consultant, I would be wearing sterile gloves when I show it to parents, and parents often ask me, do I need to wear a glove? No, you don't need to wear a glove, because it's your own microbiome that you're sharing with baby, but you do need clean, short fingers and clean hands, obviously, before you start. And then what you do is, after you plunged your tube into the bottle, you'll find the end of your tube and you align it up with the end of your finger. I usually use my index finger, but we all come in different shapes and sizes. Some people might use a thumb, and maybe for men, maybe with slightly bigger fingers, you might want to use your little finger. Again, just follow your baby's comfort. Just watch their reaction, and again with how far you go. So the tube is lined up with the end of your finger. You might want to tape it somewhere here, but it's not necessary. You can just use your thumb to hold on to the tube, because once it's in baby's mouth, it will be solidly attached anyway, so you don't need to hold anymore. And again, it's going to be hard to demo. I don't have a baby at the moment, but just take my word for it. What usually happens is, when they open wide, you go in with your finger with the tube already attached, and hopefully a helper who can lift the bottle just to help with the flow initially, and go as far as, again, people wonder how far to go. Just go as far as baby is comfortable, as far as you can without baby gagging. It's really important sometimes, if they have a very highly sensitive gag reflex, to desensitize baby, because it will help, because you want nipple to go in as far into baby's mouth on the palate, on the soft palate, as far as the junction of the hard and the soft palate. So you really want to sort of get them used to that sensation of, rather than them just sucking on the end of the straw, so to speak, you actually want to give them the idea that this will go in a little bit further, but it's got to be comfortable. And once they start sucking, you're good. You can see the milk coming through at that point. You can see the milk running through the tube. Same principle. So if you want faster flow, you lift the bottle. If you want slower flow, you lower the bottle. And this is all there is to it. You let them suck on your finger, and the milk is coming in at the same time through the tube. Whether it's breast milk or formula milk, it's absolutely fine either way. And again, like I said earlier, you might at that point, if they're sucking efficiently, you might actually want to transition them onto the breast and see if it's helping, see if they can manage that. And if not, then the beauty of this method is, again, this can be done by any of the carers. You know, if mom needs a break, then it's often the dads who give, or partners, or even grandmas, friends, anyone you can train to do this method. It's as easy as bottle feeding. So it's very hard to overfeed through finger feeding, because baby is 100% in control of the flow. And what else is there to say? Same principles apply for cleaning your tube. So again, it can be used more than once. You find these NG tubes online. You can find them on your usual sources. Not as easy as you think. So maybe ask your breastfeeding supporter to give you a couple of links. And yeah, all you need is your finger for this one, and your tube, and your source of milk. I hope you agree that this can be a really easy and efficient way of supplementing your baby, and the benefits are multiple, as mentioned before. So I just hope that by doing this little mini masterclass, we've managed to convince you that it's worth giving a go. If you're a supporter, whether a supporter or you're a parent, do come back if you've got any more questions. I try to be as exhaustive as possible, but my DMs are always open, my email is always open, and I will share some links in the comments for you to do further investigation. And maybe just one last question. How long, I often get is, how long do I need to use this? Am I stuck with this forever? If I start using the supplementing nursing system or finger feeding. So, as I mentioned earlier, hopefully you've got someone helping you work out the causes of the issues of slow feeding, slow weight gain, nipple pain, and so on. And once you're getting to the bottom of these issues and you're working on them, for example, if it's a flow to the breast issue, as you're increasing your supply, you will lose the need for supplementing extra milk. So you will hopefully see more and more milk left in the bottle after your breastfeeding sessions, and baby just being satisfied purely at the breast. So hopefully then that you can lose this. And with finger feeding, again, it's a transitional method, so like any other supplementation, hopefully the more efficiently your baby feeds and time is on your side. I always say, as babies grow, their jaws get stronger and they get more efficient at feeding. And sometimes we just don't know. Sometimes there is just, mothers tell me there was just one feed and everything clicked into place, and it's a bit like magic. Sometimes we know the reasons, sometimes we don't. But persistence is key, and getting the right support is key. So you're hopefully not stuck with this forever. I have heard of examples where it just worked so well using the supplementing system that yes, mom and baby ended up using it for months until the end of their breastfeeding journey, and it was no biggie. They got so used to it and it became so convenient. No more inconvenient than mixing of bottles and carrying formula. So actually, and sterilizing bottles. So it's your choice. Again, like everything in breastfeeding and infant feeding, you decide what works for you, and just have good support behind you. Ask your questions, inform yourself, and hopefully you'll find that and this is helpful. And just wishing everyone a happy Sunday, and I'm looking forward to your comments.